Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Interesting show. Today we're talking to a married couple who are joined together and share more than just a gold wedding band. Take a look at this. Horace had been diagnosed with a reflux that causes chronic renal failure. He underwent his first kidney transplant at 23 and by age 40 needed a second. His now wife Cindy had been an exact match. Knowing each other just under a year, they both knew they wanted to spend the rest of their lives together. Cindy made the decision to be his next donor. Today, they both live happy and healthy. So much more than just a ring bonds this couple together. When they met, they fell almost immediately in love with each other. Today, Horace and Cindy live happy and healthy after the major surgery of one of Cindy's kidneys being transplanted into Horace's body. Welcome, Horace and Cindy, to the show. Nice to see you guys. Thank you for being here today. So interesting show, as I said in my introduction about you guys, and a beautiful love story. You guys knew each other just really a short time, under a year, and you fell madly in love with each other. And before we get to all that, I'm actually going to start with you, Horace. Tell us about the condition that you have that caused you to need a kidney transplant.
Honestly, they really never were able to get a grasp on it. They said it was reflux, which is kind of like a when it's not working properly and it kind of backs up into the kidney, makes the kidney kind of, it knocks it out of whack. It doesn't work. So it was, but it was a long process. It was like from as long as I can remember. I've had several surgeries. I've had reconstruction surgery, just to make sure everything works. So ever since I was very small, I was in the hospital often.
Wow.
I wind up, one of my kidneys wasn't doing well as a child, and due to constant high blood pressure, it was removed. So I lived several years with just one kidney, and everything was fine. I had a really normal life. I had a wonderful family. It never made me feel like I was different or sick, or I just had a situation. My first transplant, actually, Cindy was my second. My first one was from a cadaver, so I never really knew the donor or anything like that. And
how old were you when that happened?
It was in 1990, May of 1990. So at the time, medicines weren't where they are now, and technology wasn't where it was now, and they had only said, this is not really temporary, but it should only last like 10 years, because after a while you're going to need another one. But because of my upbringing and having been in the hospital so long, like if they tell me to do something or not do something, that's what it is, to stop and keep me from being out of the hospital, things of that nature. So I actually wound up making it last for like 17 and a half years.
Wow, so it lasted way beyond what they expected.
All the expectations, and I'm a very spiritual person too. My family's spiritual, so that was, God had a big hand in that, like I'm going to show you, you say one thing, I'm going to do another. So the whole process, is just kind of watching what I ate, make sure I'm on my medications, keeping my weight at a reasonable level, things of that nature.
So did all those factors contribute to extending the life of that kidney?
Yes, I think so. I don't drink alcohol. I've never drank, so that's a big factor. And like I said, if you give me a roadmap, that was my first transplant. If you tell me, in our studies, this is how we show that it benefits or the longevity of a kidney, that's what I'm doing.
And what did they tell you that needs to be done after 10 years? I mean, did they tell you that you're going to need another donor or another kidney transplant?
They said originally it said 8.5, 9 years to start going to see. They measure kidney function, what's called creatinine. So creatinine level goes from like 0 to on up. So they said once it starts getting to like 7, 8, 9, it's creeping. It wants a replacement.
Wow.
And that never really happened. I think the first kidney, I think I averaged out at like 2, 3, something like that. And as it progressed, it did get higher, but not in the time that they said.
And what is the process? I mean, do they put you on a list for an organ donation?
Actually, yes. The first one, because of what they said, the term that they thought it would be, they put me on a list early. They're just like, I think it was around like, well, when I went past the 10, I think they started, we just want to get you, get everything in the computer, it started to put you on a list. And then when the time comes, you should be available. So the list is,
yeah,
huge.
I can imagine.
Yeah, the weight is tremendous. So again, God stepped in, and I didn't need it, but through the whole process, it wasn't an urgent need. I was on the list and let it, trickle down as it did. And actually, I didn't even know that I needed it. I was still young. I was out with my friends one night, and I had been on the list so long. I came in, my numbers were creeping, but it wasn't, you know, urgent. And I actually came out, my friends and I were out one night, and I came home, and the doctor called me in the morning when I came home and said, we have your kidney. And I actually thought, I almost lost it because I thought one of my friends was playing on the phone. The doctor was at Stony Brook. His name was Dr. Rappaport. He's no longer there. I think he passed, but a phenomenal surgeon, physician. My middle name is Rapport. So my friend, when I got on the phone, I thought my friend was just making up a name. He's like, this is Dr. Rappaport. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. You know, it's like 5 in the morning. I'm going back to sleep. My mother, who's a postal worker for the past, you know, 28 years, she's like, who's calling my house at 6 o'clock in the morning? She picked up. So I'm still groggy. I went to sleep. So then I hear her run in my room like, listen, your transplant's ready. I'm like, nah, that's just my friend Maurice. She's like, Horace, your transplant is ready. And the doctor was there about saving lives. He's like, Mrs. Barrow, Horace is ready. He's on the list. But if he doesn't want it, there's a whole lot of list of people that'll take it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, and he's just, and I respected that. I appreciated that. And my mother woke me up. And back then she said, if you don't get this kidney, you're going to dialysis. And that's something I didn't want at the time. Yeah. Sat straight up in the bed, let's go. You know, so I went and got it. But it was just, I didn't feel it. You know, I didn't even know anything was going on. So, again, God stepped in, you know, and I went and got the transplant, and it was a phenomenal experience.
Wow. And now your second donor is actually the love of your life that's sitting to your right here. So how did you guys meet, actually? Because you do have a beautiful love story. Reading the story and doing the show today, I'm actually excited about it because, again, you knew each other a short time, and this was something that's, to some people, a major decision, and you just did it like that.
Yeah.
What was it you loved about each other?
We had an instant connection. We really did. And the beginning of our relationship, it was a phone conversation relationship. So it wasn't even in person. We did a lot of talking. So we had a really great foundation. We got to know each other. We got to know each other's past because we both had first marriages and, you know, had history. I had 2 children. So, you know, there's a lot of things to talk about. So I had to talk about them, the kids, and he had the whole kidney issue. So it was a lot of conversation that we did, and it just felt right. Yeah. Instantly. It was almost strange how quickly it felt like it was the right thing to do. Like we both instantly, I think, knew this was it. Yeah. Yeah. This is what we always wanted. This is, you know, we both know what we had in the past and we didn't want that anymore. Right. And we knew what we wanted, and we both filled that criteria for each other. So it was nice. It was definitely refreshing.
And in him telling you about his condition and needing a kidney or had a kidney transplant back then, what went through your mind? I mean, were you thinking twice, maybe like, well, did you know a lot of the facts? I should start with that, actually.
I didn't know anything. I come from a very blessed family, no major medical issues. Nothing to really inquire about something like that. So I did have, in the back of my head, you know, I was nervous. I'm like, what if? What if he doesn't, you know, make it? What if, you know, I fall in love with this man and I lose him, you know? And I just, in my head, I said, you know what, I got to get to know this guy more. There was just something that just made me not fear that. It was just I needed to have him with me for whatever that time frame was going to be. Yeah. I just knew it was going to be a good thing regardless of how long it would be.
And looking at your pictures in the slideshow that was in the beginning of the show, I mean, there is a lot of connection, as you said, and you are bonded together by so much more than just the wedding bands that are on your fingers.
Absolutely.
So when you learned about his condition and the fact that he needed this second kidney, was it something that you felt like you had to think twice about?
Wasn't so much thinking twice about it. It was just something I need to make sure was the right decision. Being a single mom, having 2 children, that was my major concern. Yeah. So I did a lot of praying. I really did. I did a lot of praying about it because I really wanted to make sure I was making that right decision, not just for him, but for my family. And the final decision final day that I made the decision was we happened to be at New York Presbyterian in the city, and his final appointment with his actual surgeon that would do the transplant for him, the last, getting all the information they need for the surgery, and they put his information in the computer, and the nurse was just talking out loud with us in the room, you know, blood type, da-da-da, and as soon as she said the blood type, I knew we were a match. Yeah. So at that point I said, all right, God, I got it. You know, I said, this is
sign.
It was my final sign, because I really felt like it was the thing I wanted to do, that it was something that I had to do to extend his life, not just for himself, but almost selfishly, but for me.
And it was
I
actually...
wanted him to be in my life, you know, as long as possible.
Right, and it was
So.
an exact match. I mean, you couldn't hit the nail on the head anymore,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Yeah.
And both of you shared the most rare blood type. Like
Yes.
7% of Americans, I think, is the stats on it, that share the O-negative blood
Right.
type.
Yes.
Right.
So the
Yep.
signs were all there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it was funny because
Absolutely.
we had, you know, you have to be put on several lists. By the time I met Cindy, I was actually on dialysis. So I had moved to that, you know, that transition. And we met through one of my nurses, because one of my nurses, Cindy's a director with Mary Kay. One of my nurses at the time was actually a Mary Kay consultant of Cindy's. So because we had built a relationship, and, you know, she was like, they wanted to do things outside of just dialysis within that 4 hours. So we went to a dinner, and that's how we met. But she was the introduction to, you know, Cindy. And Cindy, so being on several lists, we had been to several different hospitals. We went out to Philly one day, her, my mom, and I, and we were just putting myself on different lists, you know, so whichever came first, you know,
Increase your
we're
odds.
gone, you know, so
Right.
to increase my chances of it coming where I wouldn't be, you know, deathly ill, things of that nature. So New York Press was actually the final stop. You know, we started far and came in, and we were actually walking out. We were done. You know, we had
Wow.
a interview, and on the way out, my mother was with us, and we walked out. We were going to the car, and it was Dr. Kapoor.
Yep.
Right? Dr.
Yes.
Kapoor was the surgeon, and phenomenal. I can't say enough about New
Yeah.
York Presbyterian. Seriously, I think we've. I'll go back to that, but anyway, phenomenal. But we were walking out, and he had said, if you have any questions, please, you know, come back in or whatever. So we were walking out, and he said, honey, I have one more question. I was like, okay, you know, what is it that you wanted? And she's like, I just want to know that if I donate, if we're still able to have children, as long as there won't be any complications, things of that nature. So, you know, not really grasping. I'm like, okay, if you what? She's like, if I donate. So right away, I'm like, babe, no. She's like, look, ask the question. I'm like, okay. So now my mother over here, she's like, what did you just say? And she had never, there had been no
I didn't
talk of
let
her.
anybody know that I
Wow.
was
We had
thinking about
never
it.
mentioned
Nobody
it.
knew that you were even thinking about it, but you
Yeah.
were.
No.
Yeah.
So I went back to Dr. Kapoor. I said, we have one more question. He was phenomenal. He's like, oh, please come back in. He didn't like answer my question in the hallway. He's like, no. He called us back to the office, closed the door. What's your question? And when Cindy said, I mean, he was ecstatic, because he has such a passion for transplantation, you know, and living donor transplantation. I mean, he was almost giddy.
Wow.
And he was just like, sure, what? And he heard that. He's like, is that what you're really thinking about? Is that what you want to do? And he's like, there's no problem whatsoever, no complications, you know, da-da-da. And he was just, so now he's just like, of course, like, please, anything else, you know, da-da-da. But he was very, very happy, like, you know, let me know. And it was phenomenal. And I spent a lot of time actually trying to talk her out of it.
Yeah, I
You know,
remember
yeah,
reading
it
about
wa-
that in your story.
Yeah, it was a long time. At every turn, I was like, babe, you know, I'm good. You know, I've always felt God knew who I was going to be before I got here. So he built me for whatever my journey was.
Why were you trying to talk her out of it, though?
When you fall in love with someone, like I said, I felt I was built for this. You know, I know ins and out of hospitals. You know, God made my body where my cuts and my bruises and my surgeries, I'm going to heal. You know, I'm going to come through it. I'll be fine. You know, whenever I go to church, I'll be fine. To have someone that's never been involved, you know, or ever had to be in the hospital for any amount of time or have surgery other than, you know, having children, you know, I just wasn't, selfishly, you know, I didn't want her to experience it. You know, I wasn't really respecting what she wanted, but I'm like, I don't want you to have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and we went back and forth. We had discussions. We had family sit-downs. We had everything. And she was just like,
I wouldn't
I'm
have
doing it. Yeah, you know, I'm doing it. Up
And
until
Cindy-
the day we went to the hospital, until the day of the surgery.
The morning.
Wow.
Yeah, we were at New York
In
Presbyterian.
gowns,
Yeah.
ready to go,
Right, we
and
haven't
he's still trying to
changed.
talk
I'm
me
like,
out of
babe,
it.
we don't. We're at the
He
hospital.
made one last
He
play.
tried.
And we were at New York Press at 5 in the morning. I think
Wow.
it was just, they just opened like the office for us. There was really nobody else there but the surgeons. It was empty. And we were in the dressing room, and I said, you know, babe, please. You know, she's like, look, we're here. We're going to do something. You know, and, you know, we went through
Came
it.
all this way. But you
Yeah.
actually laugh about it, Cindy. I mean, you say that you've had 2 C-sections, so this is like nothing
Nothing.
to you.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
it was pretty much the same concept. They don't, you know, too many people have that old conception that it is a huge, you know, scar on the back and a huge to do. But it literally is 3 holes, and then they make an incision like a C-section to pull the kidney out. So once they told me that, especially after they said that, I'm like, shoot, I've done that twice already. I could do it one more time. This should not be hard.
That's nothing compared to childbirth, I'm sure.
We were out of the hospital. We were in on a Thursday, May 7th, and I was out Saturday, and he came home Monday.
Wow. Yep. And this might seem like an obvious question, but you know, what made you decide to donate your kidney to him?
Well, my main reason was I loved him so much that my thought process was, on dialysis, he's never going to be fully healthy because it doesn't fully clean the system out like a kidney does. It still leaves 25% of toxins every time he has that, and he was doing that 3 times a week, right? You were up to 3 times a week, 4-hour sessions. So in my brain, all I kept saying was, this is killing his other organs. Slow. So if I can do something to stop that and have him with me and my children longer, that's what I wanted. And it's such a, you know, and since then, you know, we've come in contact with others that need it, and I'm like, God, I wish I had another one. Because not enough people know that you can save someone's life and watch them live.
It's amazing, I'm sure.
You know, everybody signs the back of that donor card, and that's fantastic. I love that people are doing it, and there's more people that we have convinced to do that just from our story, but they don't realize what they can do while they're alive and see that person just live the life that they're meant to live. Absolutely. You know, so that's part of our mission, you know, and it was never thought it would be part of my mission ever in my life, you know, but in meeting him and meeting others and doing walks and all sorts, it's a mission, you know, now to get that out to people so they know.
And how long did you have it in the back of your mind that you were going to do this before you even let it be known?
The very first appointment we went to, I think when we went to Philly, we went to, what was it, Einstein?
I think so, yes.
And that was my first, because once I really met the doctors and I heard the stories and why live donor was better than cadaver and all, and you know, the best part was the woman who coordinated the whole thing in Einstein, her sister gave to their father.
Yes.
Wow.
So hearing those stories and then knowing that that person's still living and healthy and doing everything she ever wanted, I was kind of like, okay, this is, you know, and that's how it all started. Just the educational part of it is what made me really start to consider it.
Were you ever nervous about it at all?
No.
No?
I wasn't. I mean, of course, you know, you're nervous about surgery and all that stuff, but to the point that I think some people thought I was a little naive about it, you know, with the kids and everything, and I'm like, no, I'm going to be okay.
And technology, I think, is so different today. And, I mean, how long ago did you have the surgery?
Was it 90?
No,
it was in 2010, yeah.
So just
First one's in
recently,
90,
man, I'm sure it's done a lot differently than it was back in 1990.
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
recovery time even is not as bad anymore.
Yeah. Even the medications aren't as,
well, he actually recovered faster than me.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was up and moving faster than I was, which made me a little mad, but...
Which is what I was saying earlier, I'm built
considering
for
your generous gift.
You know, I was like, at least you could lay down a little longer than me, you know.
Yeah, I had to come over and kind of like, boo, you got to move. You
you
got to move. It's going to help. You have to move.
But it makes sense, though, because his body wasn't functioning at 100%. Now I gave him the thing that he needed to function, so his body was like, oh, this feels good, you know. And I just had, you know, I had a lot of soreness, and I've always been a slow recoverer from being under anesthesia. That's my thing, you know.
What was your family's reaction to you wanting to donate?
My parents were pretty good from the beginning. My siblings were very concerned. But the difference was my parents knew Horace a little bit more, and they were going through some of the process because we were living with them. So they knew more. My siblings didn't know as much, and they didn't know why he needed the transplant, what happened, and what caused the kidneys to fail. So I think their fears were, could they fail again? You know, and they were concerned about my children, you know, their nieces and nephews, you know, what if something happens to me, now what, you know. But once we had a family chat about it, they were on board, because then they got to really hear his side, hear his story. They saw how educated I was and how much I knew about it, that I wasn't just diving into it, I really did my research.
And you can actually live very happy and healthy with just one kid. kidneys.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there are no things that you
Yeah.
really need to be concerned
No,
about.
they just recommend, don't do contact sports. I'm good with that. Getting a little old for
You're
that
not
anyway.
trying
I
out
don't,
for the
I have
NBA
the,
or
no, I'm
anything?
good.
Right.
I don't have the energy for that anymore. And that's really it. Just keep yourself healthy. Keep your weight down, eat right. The same things that we all should be doing, whether we have one or two kidneys. So, but you're designed to live with one. So,
Okay.
so it's almost like God gave us a backup to help
Wow.
others.
Interesting.
That's
And
how I look
were there
at it.
any complications that were part of a surgery, or other than the normal?
No, normal. We had this discussion the other day. The only complication for Horace is they pump him up with so much liquid and fluids
Make sure
afterwards.
the kidneys
He blew
work.
up.
Yeah.
That's why we had no pictures post-surgery right
Right,
away, because
right.
he was blown up
I
like
would
this.
say, when I in the recovery room and at New York Press, they care about both parties.
Yeah.
Like, we came in as a couple and they sat us down. It was like, we respect that you're a couple, but coming into this, you're separate people. So they had a team for Cindy and a team for me. And when we came into the door, we split up. I didn't know what was going on. Cindy knew what was going on. If I got done early, too bad. We're not done with Cindy. And they make sure that she's not under any type of stress or any, she's being pushed to do this. They give her more and more education. They ask her more questions, So it's awesome. Like,
To
they
make
just,
sure you're mentally and
yeah, yeah.
psychologically okay, like,
it's phenomenal.
to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So when they did it, I really appreciate
And
that.
even afterwards, they were great. They
Yeah.
allowed us to text in the hospital, which they weren't allowing at that time. And
The nurses were running messages.
back and forth. They
My
were
mother was running messages.
It was
It
great.
was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because they pumped me so full of fluids. Like, my in-laws were able to come into my recovery room, and they're not used to being around this. So meanwhile, my face is sitting out here. So I know they came in there like, oh God, he don't look good. I hope Cindy looks better than he does. I was touching my face from like here. Like, wow. And I actually told the doctor, he's like, we're gonna put in one more bag of fluid. No, you're not. I'm done. I'm good.
there.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it was phenomenal. It really was. The
Wow.
team, I can't say enough about them.
Were there any concerns that you've had with this past surgery as opposed to your first?
The only concern I had was Cindy. That was the only concern. And I actually, her doctor, you have two different surgeons, and I actually spoke to her doctor, and right before I went to sleep, I did all but grab him by the collar. I was like, listen, when I wake up, the first thing I want to know is how Cindy is. So you need to have a nurse here that's knowledgeable enough to tell me, because if not, we're gonna have a problem, And the minute I woke up, not only was a nurse, he was there. And the first thing he told me when I was, coherent, he's like, Cindy was phenomenal. And that made, now I can relax. I can do, that's all I wanted to do. So they really kept in mind like how your emotions were going with it. And he came in himself. He didn't send a nurse. And he's like, I did the surgery. She's fine. She's doing well. She's in recovery. You guys should be. I was like, I'm good. So she was my only concern. That was it.
Was there ever a point in your life with battling this chronic renal failure that maybe you were afraid that maybe you won't make it one day? Did that ever come across your mind?
I've had experiences from what I was told from being younger in my reconstruction. I've been, they say you've, flatlined or whatever a couple times or whatever. And it's been close, and it's been, which you take a risk in each surgery. But I come from, I can't say enough, such a foundation of spirituality, and it's just like God is with me in this.
So it's not something that you think about on a daily basis. You
No.
go out and you live your life.
I live my life to the fullest every day, every time, and giving praise every day, every time. Because if I hadn't, I'm from, Long Island. I had moved away to Alexandria, Virginia. I was living there like 15 years, and I wound up moving back. And coming back, it was so much more in coming back because I came back and got my life saved. If I had stayed in Alexandria, we never would have met. We wouldn't have had the
Everything
same
happens for a
circles.
reason.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So, it's just a blessing. The whole.
And he teaches anybody he comes across just that's what life is all about. Just don't hold grudges, no drama. That's one of the best things when we started talking. He's like, I don't do drama, and
Not at all.
it's so true. You can't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
Life is too short. You just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. The lessons he's taught me, the lessons he teaches my children. It's wonderful that we live.
Exactly.
And not too many people do that. You just got to live.
And something else happened wonderful after, which is also post-op. You actually proposed to Cindy afterwards. All this happened before they were even married.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Which is-
Yeah,
which
see-
makes it such like a beautiful love
Right.
story, as I said.
And
Were
that's-
you surprised?
Well, truthfully, I'll tell the truth.
Here's
Here's the true story. We both knew we wanted to get married.
Right.
And he, with the big heart that he has, wanted me to have a big to do, because that's what he wanted, and he felt I deserved and all that. Meanwhile, I'm like, what the heck? You know, like, let's just do it. So really, I said to him, what are we waiting for?
Yeah.
You know, let's just do this. So it technically, I kind of
he
asked
kinda
him
froze,
to marry me.
And I was like, honey, if you know, and I didn't really feel bad, but I'm just like, let's just do it bigger. Let's do it. She's like, I don't need that. I just want you as my husband. I don't care what it is. You know, and to me, I'm like, okay, you know, this another reason to fall more in love with her. She doesn't need all that. You know, it's about what's most important. You know, and that's what we did.
Excellent. So this, for both of you, was a completely different relationship than your first relationship.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Night and day. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And like I said, and to boot, my numbers have never been better as far as my creatinine. Yeah, and I've never been honestly healthier.
Wow.
So
and you
I had the
commend a lot
experience.
to your mom and your grandma as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. They gave me such a foundation. You know, such a foundation. I never was treated as a sick child, or you know, they let me go do what I had to do.
Play
you know,
baseball.
whatever the parameters were that the doctor gave us, I went right up to the bar. You know, and they let me. You know, and my grandmother was just like, I don't care where I have to go. You know, when I was younger, people thought traveling to the city was a big deal. My grandma was like, I will go to California driving to get my grandson, and she made me. As I grew up, I began to want only the best. If you're gonna take care of me, you have to be the best. You know, because that's what I deserve. And it always worked out.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I thank you both so much for being here and sharing this story today. It's definitely a story like no other, right, guys? Big round of applause for Cindy
Thank you
and
so
Horace
much.
here.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Horace.
Thank you.
More to come. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in the Riverhead area and would like to be part of our live studio audience, all you have to do is write for tickets. Please include your name, address, and daytime phone number. Email us at thejasonshow@yahoo.com. Special thank you to Horace and Cindy Barrow for sharing their stories today. If you have an inspirational story that you'd like to share with us on the show, give us a call at 631-574-9678 or send us an email at thejasonshow@yahoo.com. As always, thank you at home for watching, and we'll see you next time.